can be better examples for each other and for those that we come in contact with. We praise you and thank you in Jesus' name, amen. This is part of a series that I do called Your Health is in Your Hands. And I like to start with 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verses 19 to 20, where Paul says, "What? Know ye not that your body is a temple of the Holy Ghost which is in you, which you have of God, and you are not your own, for you are bought with a price. Therefore glorify God in your body and in your spirit, which are God's." And I like to ask the question, if you're bought with a price, is Jesus getting what he paid for? We often don't think of that, because he gave up all of heaven, not knowing if he could go back, so that you and I could have eternal life. He gave up his life and shed his blood for us, and we know that, but do we really understand it and incorporate it into our lives, into our everyday choices? This is just a picture to remind you that Jesus created us and he empowered us. He gave us strength, and he rose us up out of the dust of the ground, starting with Adam and on down till today, to choose to follow his pattern of health and life. They were perfect. Adam and Eve were in every physical, mental, and spiritual endowment, and he gave them everything they needed at the beginning of time. Did you know that all of those components, those health-giving plants, are just what we need to be in good health today? Benevolent Creator had given them evidences of his goodness and love in providing them with fruits, vegetables, grains, and causing to grow out of the ground every variety of trees for usefulness and beauty. And we know after the fall, in chapter 3 of Genesis, we're told that the thorns and the thistles, and that they had to use physical labor to get the weeds out. And so we know that they needed more minerals after sin for some reason. So we have the foods that grow under the ground, like the carrots and potatoes and beets and thorns and thistles. We think of rose hips are high in vitamin C. We think of thistles like artichokes are good for you. They're good for the liver. So those statements are from Volume 2 of Redemption, page 6. I just get excited when I read that in Genesis, that God knew. I get excited because God knew from the beginning what was best for our bodies. And today, if people change from eating so much processed food, and get back to the garden, their health improves. You get exercise and you get the necessary nutrients. Often the question comes up, what about, I'm just going to touch on this right now. So God's original diet, you can see at the top of the page there, was like what I just mentioned, the plants. And then after the flood, the animal flesh was allowed, meant to be temporarily until the plants grew again. So you see that Adam lived to be 930 years old, and his descendants, there's just highlights here. Methuselah is the longest living person at 969 years old. Noah even lived 950 years. But you see after the flood, you see how the stature was less. See, Noah was probably right there with Adam. Ellen White says that Adam was probably about 15 feet tall, and they're finding skeletons that are 12 to 15 feet tall now. So anyway, their stature was less until about the time of Jesus. The average lifespan was 45 years old, and that's still true in third world countries today. The average lifespan in first world countries like the United States and United Kingdom is around 70 years old. And of course, the Bible says in Psalms that it's appointed to man to 70 years, and if by reason of virtue, 80 years. But what's the quality of life for the majority of people that age? Some people have multiple diagnoses and multiple medications, and they're living, but they're either having to be taken care of or they're feeble. I see several people not only sitting in the room right now, but that were here earlier today that are in their 80s and even 90s that are still pretty agile and getting around well. And I'm suspecting that they probably have some genetics that take care of that, but also they're eating well and they're following the lifestyle habits. So this picture illustrates that after the animal products were introduced, the lifespan shortened. So we're also told whatever we eat or drink or whatever we do it all for the glory of God. So choices again. And in Psalm 103, bless the Lord, O my soul, and forget not all his benefits. He satisfies your mouth with good things so that your youth is renewed like an eagle's. We need to faithfully guard the Lord's property, for any abuse of our power shortens the time that our lives could be used for the glory of God. So it's all about how much are we willing to be used by God, or would we rather choose to do what self desires? We all are his purchased possession. Excuse me. All is his purchased possession and must be used intelligently to the end that we may preserve the talent of life. Have you ever thought that your life is a talent? It's a living sacrifice or a gift. When we do all we can on our part to have health, then we can ask and expect God to bless our efforts for the preservation of health. That's from My Life Today in 134. The laws of nature are the laws of God. So it's plainly our duty to give these laws careful study. You know, when Roger mentioned that we were in China, I was humbled and amazed at how the simple instruction of the lifestyle habits that we commonly call the 8 laws of health restored or reversed or revived people's health problems. Even terminal lung cancer responded to the simple application of water treatments and changing nutrition. And I'm talking about people that are not only coming from Buddhism, but they use a lot of peanut oil over there, and they use, or at that time they did, I'm sure it's still in the rural areas at least, they use a lot of peanut oil, and they might get a lot of exercise in the rural towns. In the big cities, not so much maybe. And they don't have toilets like we do here. They have maybe a ceramic hole in the ground or in the floor. So we had to have portable bathtub to do water treatments. And anyway, it's amazing when we conform to what God wants us to do and adapt to what's available to use. Peanut oil is not good for you. I mean, and especially not large amounts. And so are you asking about oils in general? So the olive oil and the coconut oil are okay because they don't. Okay, can you repeat your question? Avocado oil is probably okay, but you want to use it in just to brush the pan so it doesn't stick, or just in very small amounts. Not this one. My host, Paul, took us out to meet a friend of his who was diabetic, and he said this guy wants to talk to you about his diabetes and help him understand how to change. So we went in his home, and he was preparing lunch for us. And he had a big pot like this. There was probably somewhere between 7 and 10 of us. They had a big pot that he'd cooked some greens in, which is wonderful. But just before he served them, he took a coffee mug full of oil and poured it over those greens. And I said, Paul, you have to tell him to stop using so much oil. Because I can't talk Chinese. That's not my language. And he may have done it another time, put more than that on there. But the point I'm making is that we just need to be careful to use olive oil. Probably avocado oil is okay, and coconut oil do not change to carcinogenic and toxic at higher heats like the other oils do. And thank you for that question. It's probably a really good question in this discussion, but if you can, write your questions down, because at the end we'll have a question and answer if I haven't already covered points, okay? I don't think I do have that a little bit on fats. I want to just expand a little bit on the concept of Christ purchased property. We have taken liberties that are not ours to take and treated our bodies as if the laws of the body have no penalties if we break them. Just like the law of gravity, if you jump off of a building, you're going to break a bone or die. There's a consequence. Parents should study the laws of nature. They should become acquainted with the organism of the human body. There's a really nice, and I don't know if it's still in print or not, but there's a really nice book that I used with my daughter when we were homeschooling. It's called The House We Live In. And it goes through the functions of the body at a 4th grade level. So you might be interested in looking into that. And I believe it's by John Harvey Kellogg. So this house, or the house we live in. Yeah. So not only the children, but we all need to understand the functions of the various organs and their relation and dependence. They should study the relation of the mental to the physical powers, and we covered a lot of that this morning, and the conditions required for the healthy action of each. If you assume the responsibilities of parenthood without such a preparation, it's a sin. And that's from Child Guidance, page 64. And that's one of the statements. There's many statements that say God showed Ellen White that we should understand how our bodies work. And that's why I bring this presentation to you. The digestive system includes several organs that are vitally important to our well-being, but it also is connected to other organs that we're going to touch on. And what I'd like to do, what I have found is the most effective, is to go through the function of each, starting with the mouth, with a common ailment and a remedy in each of those areas. So we're going to go from start to finish of the digestive system. So here we go. Some more statements. If you want these statements, I can pull them back up after. I don't want to be repetitive and take too long in here. A knowledge of physiology and hygiene should be the basis of all educational effort. Remember how Jesus taught? He always had something in nature that he could relate to the people that they were familiar with. And they were pastoral. They were rural. They were fishermen or farmers, or we can do the same thing with children and with each other. We can apply the physiology and hygiene of the body to the other things in nature. Because remember, that's where we came from. So the human mouth has teeth, right? unless they've been pulled. Incisors, canines, and molars and premolars. So the molars are flat, and they're perfectly designed for grinding food and chewing. And our jaws move in a rotating action so we can chew to smaller pieces before swallowing. If you look at this picture, you see the canine is the dog and the feline is the cat. They have very large incisors, long teeth. And if you just put them next to the human teeth, you see that they're, because people say, well, we have incisors and we can bite and tear like the animals. No, we can't. We're not designed for that. I had a young man come for counsel when he was about in his late 20s, and he was having some lower digestive issues. And I explained to him by trying to teach him that we're not designed to just chop, chop, and swallow like the dogs and cats are. We're designed to chew and grind and break it down into smaller pieces before we swallow it. He goes, he seriously was, no, really? He said, I thought I had teeth in my stomach. I could just chomp, chomp, and swallow it, and my stomach would chew it up and take care of it. He was dead serious. Well, he changed his ways, I think. But the food should be eaten slowly and thoroughly chewed or masticated in order to mix it with the saliva. Did you know that if you chomp your food and swallow it without chewing it thoroughly, it doesn't mix with the saliva? There's enzymes in the saliva to start breaking down, especially the carbohydrates. And I want you to keep in mind as we go down this journey that if it doesn't happen at one point, then it's not completely broken down at the next point. Each one is connected to the next one. Does that make sense? Well, God showed that from Testimony Studies to Diet and Foods, page 119. This, in case you're not interested with this book, it's interesting. The Testimony Studies on Diet and Foods was a syllabus that was prepared at Pacific Union College for a professor to teach the principles. And it later became Counsels on Diets and Foods. But if you can get a hold of this book, it's actually more statements than what's in Counsels on Diet and Foods. A common ailment in the mouth is the canker sore or cold sore. This one is a mouth ulcer. The canker sore is caused by a virus, a herpes virus. And what we've found is when it's first starting to break out, you feel a little burning or a little pain, you can take a Q-tip and put it under hot water from the tap and then just roll it across there as enough heat to kill that virus. And you'll be done with it. If you have an ulcer like this, you can put aloe vera gel or I don't remember. Aloe vera gel will help to heal that up. Another thing to keep in mind is that when we don't drink enough water, the mucous membranes will break down more easily. So I may repeat myself, but for right now, if you'll take your body weight and divide it in half, that's the number of ounces that you need in order to be in good health. Ounces of water. This is a picture of a healthy tongue. Your tongue should be pink and moist, smooth around the edges. And if you wake up in the morning looking like this, then there's something either wrong with your digestion or you're sick. This person actually had the flu or something. So the tongue is coated, and if you look real carefully, the edges are kind of a little bit rough. So you want it to look like this. So from the mouth goes the esophagus, down is a tube between the stomach and the mouth. The esophagus is not only a tube and connecting, but it's also a muscle. And so it moves a bolus of food down. You chew it up really good. When my kids were little, I'd tell them, you need to chew your food till it's like peanut butter in your mouth and then swallow it. Back in the old days, in the early 1900s, there was a guy named Dr. Fletcher that said you have to Fletcherize your food, chew it at least 30 times. And so we had fun trying to count how many times you're chewing your food. It's like, but the point is to mix it well with saliva and move it on down the line. So there's a picture of a bolus of food, which is what you've chewed, and it's moving it down into the stomach. Now, the common ailment is right here. The diaphragm goes across between the stomach and between the lower part of the upper part of the stomach and the lungs. So a hiatal hernia is a common problem. Hiatal hernia can be caused by overweight, by multiple pregnancies, by overfilling the stomach. It weakens the muscle wall of the stomach right here, and the stomach pouches up by the esophagus through the weakness in the diaphragm muscle. They used to do surgery for those, but they don't so much anymore, unless it's really large. Like sometimes the whole third of the stomach is up through that. But I'll tell you a real simple, if you know anybody that has a small hiatal hernia, on an empty stomach, you drink about this much water, a glass full. And then you, on a step from the bottom step, a step that high, you just jump down, and the jarring and the gravity pull will pull that hernia back down with the weight of the water on an empty stomach. Did I say that so you understand? So you drink a glass of water on an empty stomach and then jump off of a low step, and the gravity and weight of the water will pull that back down. And if it's hurting, if there's been inflammation, you can put a spoonful of charcoal in that water, and that will help that inflammation as well. We took a gentleman into our home when he was 95 years old. I'm not going to tell you all the details. So we invited him home for dinner, and he eventually came to live with us. We looked after him for 10 years. During that time, he had a hiatal hernia, and we did this little treatment I just told you about. It only took once or twice, and he never had any more problems. He was past 95. I don't remember which age he was when we did that, but he was probably like 98. So prevent the cause if you can, but if you've got a problem or you know someone that does, that's a simple treatment. And then we go into the stomach. Now, so the enzymes in the mouth start to break down the carbohydrates. In the stomach, the enzymes are primarily to break down the proteins. Has anybody ever heard the statement that cheese should never be introduced into the stomach? We should never eat cheese. Several people are nodding their heads. Have you ever wondered why? Because the body what? Cannot digest it. That's a good way of stating it. I struggled with that because I really like cheese, and I was cooking with cheese and everything, and it's like, Lord, what am I supposed to do if I don't use cheese? So, I'm afraid I'm going to knock that over. So anyway, I prayed about it. And as I was studying to put this program together, it's like protein is digested in the stomach. And what is cheese made out of? It's a protein, but it's also what? If you're trying to answer me, you have to speak up, because I'm up here and I'm also hard of hearing. So a fat, okay, so you have a protein and a fat. If a protein is covered by a fat, the enzymes can't get in there and break it down. So I don't know what that does with peanut butter sandwiches or mayonnaise on your bread, or because we have to start digestion with carbohydrates in the mouth, and then we have protein digestion in the stomach. And just as an additional point, the cheese substitutes that are available nowadays, you can buy commercially made, are fat. There's not much protein in them at all. But we have recipes for things like cashew cheese, or you can substitute and make a sunflower cheese sauce, sunflower seed. And those are okay because they're the full package, the carbohydrate, protein, and starch. Fat is all in the nut. So anyway, we want to think about that when we make a choice. So everything has to be broken down into small enough molecules that can be absorbed into the blood. And also the enzyme in the stomach possibly takes care of harmful bacteria, and then as it moves into the small intestine, digestion is completed. And then how much does the stomach hold? Generally, human stomachs have a volume of about 1 quart, 1 liter. Since the stomach has the ability to expand, it can hold up to 4 cups. That's a gallon. Have you ever seen anybody at a buffet that has 2 or 3 plates full of food like this, or a potluck? We only need about this much food, 4 cups. Not 4 liters. And the comment here is that about half of the capacity of 4 liters is the best. So remember, 4 liters is a gallon. Well, what's the problem with that? If you just keep eating because it tastes good and you like it, and if you fill your stomach too full, what happens? Well, the stomach is a muscular pouch. And I like to compare it to the agitator washing machine. You put too many clothes in there, the agitator can't move and your clothes won't get clean. It's the same idea in our stomach. The muscle has to move things around and mix it with the enzymes and squeeze. I picture it as squeezing things around in there. And if it's too full, it can't do that. And there's not enough enzymes to take care and break down everything. And I used to be in that group of people that thought when they went to a buffet, they had to eat as much as they could possibly eat, because then you get your money's worth, right? Well, that's not true. You might get your money's worth, quote unquote, at the moment, but what about down the line when you have problems in your health because you overate all those times? We don't have buffets so much now since COVID, but it not only affects the way your stomach works, but it affects your brain. Have you ever felt drowsy and foggy and groggy after a Thanksgiving meal? Or any meal that you ate too much? It's because things aren't working right. The ideal space between meals is 5 hours. That's what God told us. Did you know that even 1 bite of a piece of candy or a cookie or a chip or something stops the process and delays the emptying of the stomach? So if you eat breakfast, and it's a healthy breakfast, but 2 hours later you have a donut at work, for example. I'm not giving you healthy examples here. That digestive process stops because the new food has to be brought to the same digestive process that the original food was before it can be passed out of the stomach. So what happens? We have fermentation and we don't feel good. The last meal of the day should be at least 3 hours before going to bed. And remember that 2 hours, every hour before midnight is equal to 2 hours after midnight. And there's several reasons for that, but one of them is that the hours from 12 to 4 a.m. are God's time to discard dead cells and bring in new healthy cells. And from 4 to 6 a.m., the endocrine system prepares you for the day's stress. So if you don't go to bed till midnight or 1 or 2 o'clock for whatever reason, you're impinging on God's time. He wants to clean it up, and you're not giving him the time to do that. The other thing is that if you eat too late, your digestive system is working all night, and you wake up feeling tired and not hungry for breakfast. Even though you may be sleeping, you're not getting that deep REM sleep that you need. So it's amazing how fearfully and wonderfully we're made, and our bodies keep working even when we don't and haven't understood these principles. So, can you see my mouse up there? I get it on the picture there. Okay. So this is the liver, and the stomach has been cut away. The stomach is like right in here. So the pancreas is behind the stomach, and the gallbladder is right here in the common bile duct. This is the duodenum, which is the first part of the small intestine. The stomach is attached to that. It's been removed for this picture. So as the food that's being processed leaves the stomach and goes into the duodenum, the pancreas produces bicarbonate and other digestive enzymes. If there's any fat in that meal, then the gallbladder ejects some bile to process the fat. So again, if there's a protein covered by a fat, and the fat doesn't digest till we get to the gallbladder, then it's never completely broken down. Does everybody in this room still have their gallbladder? Gallstones are very common in America, and the primary reason for that is not drinking enough water. So get busy and check yourself and see if you're drinking enough water. It's also because we eat too much fat. We eat fried foods, we eat fast foods, we eat different kinds of oils that don't digest well, etc. I didn't know all of this when I had my gallbladder out. And I still have problems if I eat too much fat, and it doesn't take very much to be too much for me. Because the liver still makes the bile, but it constantly drips into the duodenum. There's no little storage container that the gallbladder is. So you can see in this area right here that all of these things work together to continue the process of digestion. The liver, I guess I have something further down here, just a moment. Liver is the major filter for the body. All of the blood goes through the liver, and the liver stores the glycogen and glucose and other sugars, and is released when, as I mentioned earlier today, when we need more energy. So what are some of the things that affect the working of the liver? We talked about fermentation. I don't think I can stress it enough to be careful and watchful about your food combinations, because that's fermentation and alcohol. But did you know that your emotions affect the liver? Anger hinders the working of the liver. How many of us learned when we were children to stuff it? Don't be angry, don't express your emotions. But along with anger is unforgiveness and bitterness. All of those things weaken the immune system, and they affect the liver. Filling the stomach too full can affect the working of the liver. Sedentary lifestyle, not getting enough exercise, being constipated, somehow the pressure and the reabsorbing the toxins when you're constipated back up and affect the liver. Stress affects the liver. Depression, grief, all of those things. We talked about the use of drugs this morning, so both prescribed and street drugs affect the liver because everything is filtered through the liver. And of course, disease affects the liver. I just went through all of that. It also stores and makes some of the vitamins. I found this statement when I wasn't even looking for it in Upward Look. It says sadness, which today we would say is depression or grief, deadens the circulation in the blood vessels and nerves and retards the action of the liver. It hinders the process of digestion and nutrition and has a tendency to dry up the marrow of the whole system. The red blood cells and some of the white blood cells are made in the bone marrow. So if we're compromising because of our attitudes and emotions, it's not that those emotions are wrong, but to hang on to them, and it dries up the marrow in the whole body. Obviously not completely, or we wouldn't be talking to each other. But it hinders the process of, have you ever had a major event in your life that caused you to grieve and you just aren't hungry? You just don't want to get out of bed. You just don't want to get up and go for the mail, go to work. All of those things are affecting the function of our digestive system and our liver. Okay, let's see, we're going to go into the small intestine. Most people, the average length of the small intestine is 23 feet. Can you imagine that? Right here between your lungs, your diaphragm and your pubic area, you've got 23 feet curled up in there. Most of the chemical digestion takes place in the small intestine. And I just showed you that picture where all those other enzymes are, for want of a better word, squirted in there to mix in with the digestive process. I thought it was interesting. I learned recently the small intestine does not have pain nerves. So you might have something going on in your small intestine, but not be aware of it because there's nothing to warn you. In the lining of the small intestine are these little villi. They're like little finger-like projections. And I'm hoping this diagrammatic picture you can see it's just one cell thick. So the enzymes and I'm sorry that those words aren't clearer, but anyway, the picture is what I want you to look at. They just absorb the chemistry into the blood vessel, which is this right here. And it takes the nutrition the red blood cells carry out to every cell in your body, nutrition and oxygen. Well, those villi are supposed to be really tight. Nothing can get between them. But because of stress and toxins, food particles that are too large, maybe some drugs, maybe bacteria, or maybe the liver's not working right, it causes inflammation and it causes a separation. And that's what we call leaky gut. What I've been telling you in the last 20 minutes or 30 minutes or so is showing you there's a direct connection between every organ in the system and even with the brain. And so they're calling leaky gut the cause of dementia and Alzheimer's because of this separation and those. So what happens is, for example, the food particles are too large and they shouldn't be going through that junction, but they get out into the circulation and the body recognizes them as enemies. And so it sets up a reaction, either an inflammation or an allergenic reaction. The way to heal the leaky gut is chew your food, don't drink with your meals, food combinations, but then also take aloe vera gel and hydrochloric acid. It's a betaine hydrochloric acid is made from beets, and it helps to break down your foods. I was taught that past the age of 45, we don't make, let me back up and say that different. Past the age of 45, our ability to make that hydrochloric acid declines. So as we age, we get into more advanced age, we don't have enough digestive enzymes. So we may need a supplement. So leaky gut affects the whole body. It can cause depression, anxiety, and attention deficit disorder. It can cause psoriasis. It can cause thyroid problems, constipation, diarrhea, irritable bowel, rheumatoid arthritis, fibromyalgia, headaches. Did you know that fibromyalgia is not a disease? It's a label of a cluster of symptoms. That's chronic inflammation. Leaky gut can also cause adrenal fatigue and frequent colds and food sensitivities. We need to pay attention. So the large intestine takes 32 hours to finish the digestion process. So the small intestine's job is to continue to break down and absorb the nutrients. And then when it moves into the large intestine, the job there is to absorb the vitamins created by the bacteria and absorb any excess water and compact it so it can be eliminated. So the total length from the mouth to the anus is 30 feet long. I'm only 5'7" or 8. And somehow I got 30 feet tucked up inside of me. I just think that's amazing. The first 5 feet of the large intestine is called the large bowel, and the last 6 inches are the rectum and the anal canal, which is the exit from the body. So we have the ascending goes up on the right side, transverse goes across, and descending heads on out. So some of you maybe have already experienced colonoscopy. There is one of the tests that's done to see if there's polyps or cancer in the colon. I was talking to a young woman yesterday that's a caregiver, and her client is a Native American in Cowlitz County tribe. And they have classes put on by doctors to help people with their health. And this doctor was telling the audience, I have to chuckle when I think of this, the reason there's more colon cancer in indigenous people is because they don't get tested often enough. It's like, so is the cause of colon cancer that you didn't have a colonoscopy for the last 20 years? I don't think so. The risk factors are your age, 50 or older, a family history of cancer of the colon or rectum, or a personal history of those cancers, and a history of polyps in the colon. And I would submit to you that another risk factor is a low fiber diet, meaning a high meat intake. The foods that don't have fiber move through the colon too fast. The fiber acts like a brush and keeps it cleaned out, keeps the walls cleaned out. So this is a little picture of polyps. And I don't know how you would diagnose those without a colonoscopy. But if they're left in there too long, they become cancerous. Constipation is another issue with the large colon. I'm going to get into that, never mind. Here we go. So the average American on a standard American diet has a transit time, meaning from the time you eat until you pass the waste from that meal, of 65 to 100 hours. How many days is that? Are you awake enough to do the math? That is 3 to 4 days that it takes one meal to pass through your body. And the standard American diet is low fiber, high protein, high fat, high processed foods. So this diagram shows you this meal was eaten on Saturday. It's 1, 2. Oh, sorry. We start with Wednesday. Here's Wednesday's meal. The last meal is moving out. Then Thursday, there's 1, 2, 3 meals that are still making their way down. And Friday, there's 1, 2, 3 meals. Anyway, and then there's Saturday is 3 meals. So you can see these white spaces. There's not very much time between those meals, for starters. And it's moving too slow. A person on a high fiber diet, transit time is 20 to 45 hours. That's 1 to maybe a day and a half from the beginning of one meal till it completely exits the body. The person on the standard American diet is holding 8 meals of undigested food and waste material, while the person on the high fiber diet only holds 3. So you can see there's 2 meals here, 3 meals here, and there's time in between. And there's a comparison of the two. So I'm going to get specific, and because I think it's important for us to understand. If you're eating 2 meals a day, you should have 1 to 2 bowel movements a day. If you're eating 3 meals a day, you should have 2 to 3 movements a day. Because think about it, if you're eating 2 meals a day, or let's say you're eating 3 meals a day and you're only moving 1 time a day, where is the waste from all those other meals? Just think about it. Sitting there, you're reabsorbing toxins, which are poison. Your body needs to get rid of it, and you're keeping those toxins in contact with the muscular lining of the colon. So you're going to have inflammation. You're going to have possibly eventually develop cancer. It depends on what you're eating, but you don't want you to sit and wait till the cobwebs are growing, or you read the whole magazine or whatever. You should get a signal that it's time to go and go take care of it and be done, eliminate and get up and go about your business. You shouldn't have to sit there. I have a new client coming in on Monday. When she told me, she says, I only go to the bathroom once every 8 to 12 days. I need help. So I can help her, but the point is that's not uncommon. And even what I just described to you of going once when you've had 3 meals a day, that's still constipation. And then sometimes people say, well, I'm not constipated, I have loose stool that comes out. Well, a garden hose is patent, it's open, as long as there's no mud and junk in it, right? So if you have a garden hose that's partially plugged, the water can still go through, but it doesn't have as much force or freedom to go. And the same thing is true with our colon. You can have lining on the walls of the colon, you can have some buildup, and some looser stool will still come around that, and you're still constipated. So what you see doesn't make sense. Anyway, that's enough of that. This is the Bristol stool chart. It should look like number 4. It should be round and 8 to 10 inches long and easy to move. Anything else is abnormal and needs to be improved. I won't dwell on that, I know. This is, on the right here, is an unhealthy colon. It's a composite of x-rays that actually have been taken. And this is taken from the book by Norman Walker, something about tissue cleansing. I forgot the name of it. But anyway, there's spasms and this is a megacolon enlargement. Your colon is only maybe like this, 1.5 inches or 2 inches around, but it, like your stomach, can expand and hold on to a lot of waste. It's amazing. So one of the problems we see I don't think I have a picture of it, is hemorrhoids is very common because of straining at the stool or the pressure of carrying a baby. So multiple pregnancies, you can develop varicose vein in the rectum. But do you know what the simple treatment for that is? So you take a raw potato and cut it in a stick the size of your little finger and insert it like a suppository, and it will stop the bleeding and shrink the swelling of the vein. And yes, it does come out with the next movement. It doesn't disappear. I had that question, so I just thought I'd answer it before it's asked. So, yeah, there's something about the potato that heals that problem. So what's the solution? We need to incorporate more fiber in our diet. A keto diet does not have fiber. Yes, you may lose weight, but you also lose muscle, and your heart is a muscle, so I don't recommend that. We still need to go back to that first slide, Genesis, where God said, I've given you every plant and tree yielding seed for the benefit of your health. So some of the diseases, I've covered some already, the esophagus, the gastroesophageal reflux disorder, Barrett's esophagus and cancer. The gastric reflux is usually, this is what I was taught by a medical doctor, is usually not a reflux of acid. It's because you don't have enough acid, but they give you that little purple pill to suppress the production of acid. And in my mind, that doesn't compute. It's like you're suppressing the problem because there's not enough acid. Anyway, the betaine will help that. In the stomach, there's stomach ulcers, upset stomach, inflammation of the stomach. Stomach ulcers are easily healed with aloe vera gel or fresh potato juice or fresh cabbage juice. And those two have oxygen when you juice them, and they need to be drank within 5 minutes after you juice them. Often stomach ulcers are the H. pylori bacteria, and that might require a little antibiotic, but it's curable. It's not, you don't have to suffer with it. Pancreatitis, and I don't have a natural remedy for that one. I'm sure there is one, but I don't know what. Irritable bowel and irritable bowel and Crohn's disease. You just have to be careful with what you're eating and know what foods trigger that pain and activity in the colon. This is a picture, I'm sure it's an artist's drawing of a composite of all the diseases you can have. I don't think one person can have all of these diseases unless they're, maybe they've been in a prison camp or something like that and not had any nutrition. But we want to be avoiding the diseases as much as possible. And the parasites is listed here. We all have parasites of one sort or another. We used to say that parasites are only if you've traveled to third world countries, but that's not true. They found that everybody has parasites. Some are friendly, and some are because we have pets in our home. I've been in homes where people let their cats sit on the table and then they don't wash the table before they set it for a meal, and it's like, we need to keep our animals off of where we eat. And say it again. Yep. I have a really good parasite program that I probably, just the life cycle of the parasite is 3 months, so you have to take it for 3 months. I've had people come and say, well, I just took this parasite supplement that was 10 days and I'm supposed to be free. And then they want to take what I have available, and it's, you know, I saw parasites and I feel a lot better than I did on that other one. And it's like, I'm not trying to sell you anything today, but if you want to contact me, we can talk in more detail. So I think the whole point of this diagram here is to let us know that we can be in balance. We're told that if we obey the laws of health and give time and thought to the needs of the body and the laws of digestion, we will be rewarded by clearness of thought and strength of mind. On the other hand, it's possible for one to spoil his Christian experience by the abuse of the stomach. The things that derange the digestion have a benumbing influence on the finer feelings of the mind, the heart. Every habit that injures the health reacts upon the mind. So we need to have firm and quiet nerves and a healthy circulation so we can follow right principles, so we can bring our will into the will of the Father and make the right choices. Have you ever thought of your brain as a citadel? The definition of a citadel is a fortress protecting a town, sometimes incorporating a castle. So the old concept of the castle with a moat around it, and there's guards, and there's a bridge that you can bring up, and all of those are part of the citadel. Well, in our bodies, the wrong physical habits affect the brain, so it can't protect our body, we can't make better choices, and we can't have good mental discipline. It's not studying too much that causes the principal cause of breakdown of the mental powers. The main cause is improper diet, irregular meals, a lack of physical exercise, and careless inattention in other respects to the laws of health. When we do all that we can to preserve health, then we can ask God in faith to bless our efforts. Counsels to Parents and Teachers, page 297. So I think somebody's going to pass the microphone and we can have questions. I'll leave my... Sorry, just a minute here. Let me get back down here.
I'm Ron. So Joyce, do you ever get into what is the effect of vinegar on the body?
Yes, I do. Let me just tell you about vinegar.
I'm sorry.
Let me just tell you about vinegar. I'm trying to get to the end of my presentation here, just a moment. Keeps wanting to go back to the beginning. Okay, I'll leave that up for you. So vinegar, first of all, when I was studying and trying to understand, we should never use vinegar, right? I talked to Dr. Calvin Thrash, who's passed away now, but Dr. Agatha and Dr. Calvin were prominent in the late 70s through late 90s, maybe early 2000. They have Uchee Pines in Alabama, a lifestyle center. And so my question for him was, what's the difference between acetic acid, which is white vinegar, and malic acid, which is apple cider vinegar? And his comment to me was, vinegar is vinegar. Doesn't matter whether it comes from the apple or whether it's chemically made. So then what I found out is that vinegar changes the enzymes in your stomach, and it also damages the red blood cells. So it's really hard if you're buying packaged dressings, for example, to get away from vinegar. It's in some kinds of potato chips. It's in your mustard and ketchup and all the condiments. So if you want to try to avoid vinegar, then you need to find recipes that are better or more healthy substitutes for those things. And also, it's hard to make a salad dressing, for example, with a recipe, in the sense that it turns out to be like 2 cups, and you're 1 or 2 people eating. It doesn't keep, maybe a few days, but the vinegar helps the salad dressings in the bottle to keep for years, And the other thing about vinegar, if you have a recipe that's calling for vinegar, you can substitute lemon juice, and you'll have the same or better reaction, because vinegar reacts with the baking soda and causes it to rise, like in your biscuits or your cookies or something. But lemon juice will do the same thing, and it's better for you. There's a people that say, well, I just had a woman last week tell me, I think that apple cider vinegar is okay. I lost 80 pounds taking apple cider vinegar every day. I said, well, you may have, but that doesn't mean it's good for you. Can't argue with the facts, you know. Go ahead, she has a question.
I'm not being disrespectful, but for the Asian community, they live on kimchi and pickled this and pickled that. Why does it seem like they're more healthy? And
Well, and that's also true of the Russians with the sauerkraut.
yeah.
That's a different kind of fermentation. It's a salt fermentation,
Okay.
and that in moderation is okay. It's healthy. Things like sauerkraut, and I think kimchi is if I remember right, is in the same category, has actually good bacteria that work on it to ferment it with the salt. So when you get ready to eat it, if you want to rinse it so you don't have so much salt, you can do that, but you would still have some of that bacteria.
Okay.
So that's a different fermentation process than
So
the
not
vinegar.
all fermentation is bad. Some of it is
Right.
good.
I think Roger told me one time, or maybe we read the story, that there was some pigs that were given some rotten apples to eat. Do you remember that story? And anyway, they all got drunk because they were all so fermented and hurt a whole bunch of drunk pigs. So you don't want to eat fermented apples either. That's what apple cider vinegar is. Yeah. Go ahead.
Well, I had a different question, but I actually thought of another question talking about this topic. My parents and my grandparents, they think it's really good to drink those kombucha drinks. What do you think about
Kombucha.
those?
I'm still exploring that,
Okay.
and I haven't looked at it recently, but that is a fermented drink, the
Yeah.
kombucha. It's like a mother, like you see in the real vinegar. It has a mother. It's not a mushroom and it's not a fungus that grows in the real vinegar. I think it's not good for us. Kombucha.
Good to know.
It's popular.
Yeah.
What I've found over the years, over the last 40 years that I've been looking into all of this more carefully, what I've found is if something's popular, it may be okay, but does it fit with the Spirit of Prophecy Council in the Bible? Those have to be my filters. And if it doesn't fit, then I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to recommend it. Remember, in the Bible, fermentation is a symbol of sin. So we have to incorporate that principle into the concept as well. So
My other question was, you were talking about the parasite cleanse, and were you saying that you have to do like 3 months of a parasite cleanse for it to be like 3 months? Do you think every year, or how often?
one of the people that I learned that from recommends the parasite cleanse every quarter. So that wouldn't work either. Twice a year for the parasite cleanse.
Okay.
In general. But I've had several customers / clients that I have one gentleman that's continuing to take the product for over a year now. He has little worms that come out through his skin. Sorry.
Wow.
As long as he sees those, he's going to continue to take it until they're gone, you know. And I've known of people 5 months or more. 75% of parasites are microscopic, so you can't see them. I could tell you stories, but I don't think you want to hear them.
You have a cleanse, but I was curious what your thoughts are on fenbendazole. That's something that our family has recently tried.
Fenbendazole.
Uh-huh.
I don't have a whole lot of information on that. It's not fresh in my mind. I've read about it, but fenbendazole is in the same category as ivermectin. It kills parasites and helps you recover from COVID and some of those kind of things. So I'm not saying don't use it. I'm just saying I need to study it more. In fact, I'm going to be studying it more because I've been asked to do a presentation on vaccinations. So I have to incorporate all of that. Come up with a broad presentation so people can make their own choices. It was,
Talking more about vinegar, I know you're talking about things that are fashionable. I'm sure you've heard of fire cider. So a little
yeah.
bit can a little bit
yeah.
of that be good for acid reflux or indigestion? And then also I was going to ask about yogurts that are not based on milk, like the yogurt made out of soy or all that stuff.
So the fire cider that you mean like you make with,
Yeah, it can be made or bought. It's just, I think it's apple cider vinegar, and they put a bunch of spices in it, sits in there, and has some.
I have some in my pantry that's at least 25 years old because we don't use it. We made it, but then we never used it to kill the flu virus and that sort of thing.
Yeah, particularly.
And you can't hardly swallow it because it's so hot.
Yeah, either for immunity or for
There's
indigestion.
I have a recipe for Russian penicillin. I think would be more appropriate. Then you don't have to use vinegar. That's apple. Let's see, grapefruit, orange, and lemon with the rinds, and garlic. Maybe one or two other ingredients, and you just blend it up, and then you eat it by the spoonful. We introduced that to some friends of ours that were visiting. We had just gotten acquainted with them, and they decided to spend more time, and they had a sore throat. I said, I just happen to have some Russian penicillin in my fridge, and I mean, let you try that. They liked it so well, they started making their own and use it like jam on their toast every morning. And they never got sick after that. So anyway, if you want that recipe, I have my card if you need that, or I left my info. I can't hear you.
I'll let you say.
What's going on here?
She was wondering if you have a website for what with the recipes.
I have a website, but I don't have recipes on it. I need to work on it.
I've heard that salts are not always the same. For instance, a regular table salt as compared to
Good question.
Celtic salt or Himalayan salt, that those are better than the
So
regular
in a
white.
nutshell, the answer to that is the table salt in the blue box, read your labels, because it's sodium chloride, but it also has sugar and anti-caking agents. And anytime you see sugar, anything that ends in OSE is a sugar. They usually put it in there because it tastes better and you want more, and sugar's addictive. So you're going to buy more. It's a marketing thing, Did you know the white granulated sugar is only one molecule different than cocaine? It's only the carbon and hydrogen difference, one molecule. And the Celtic and Himalayan, what we call the pink salt, does have sodium chloride in it, but the negative is that there's probably not much, if any, iodine in it. They started putting iodine in the white table salt because there was such I think probably after the Dust Bowl in the 1920s, the topsoil was gone and there was no iodine in the soil anymore. So they put it in the salt to counteract so people didn't have the goiter and the thyroid problems. But the positive is that the pink salts have a wide range of minerals. So I think they're better for you. That's what we use. You still need to use it in moderation, though. Yeah. You just need to leave the microphone in that lady's hand. I'm teasing you. The lady in the black has another question. Tiffany, that's right. You don't have another question? Are you sure? Okay. Okay.
So I've always been interested in all these studies that scientists perform on, for example, the movement of the food through the digestive system. Do they conduct those on people with the normal American diet, or do they conduct them on some other kind of test group like a plant-based diet?
Well, I think they probably use both because they have to have a, a neutral and one extreme to the other in order to be a true scientific study. But the other thing is you have to look at, if you're really researching the journals and the research papers that have been written, you have to look and see who funded it. Because it's always going to be biased towards the pharmaceutical company or the Carnation Milk Company or the, whatever. I got acquainted with Dr. Hulse, I think his name was. He wrote a book, Milkgate, or what was the name of that book? Say it again. Mad Cows and Milkgate, yeah. He spent 21 years researching the milk concepts. This is just an example, I think will answer your question. And he told me that 100% of all the chimpanzees, infants that they fed cow's milk, got leukemia and died. That's a pretty significant study. He also told me that he had, I think it was, did he have Hodgkin's disease, I think? And he was pretty sure he contracted that. It's a form of cancer from working with the milk. So, the whole point of his book is Milk is Not Good for You. It's an interesting read. Have you read it? You just remember the title. Yeah, it's been a long time. I have it in my library, but it's been a long time since I read it. Mad Cows and Milkgate. It's an interesting study, but he eventually died from that cancer, and it was sad because he did a lot of good research. But I think we have to be careful what research papers we read and I come back to the spirit of prophecy in the Bible. How does it match up? Okay, Tiffany has another question. No, you don't apologize. I was teasing you.
We all agree that we're on the cusp of the world ending here. And she says a lot of the biggest ministry towards the end.
That's right.
Because people will be dying and there won't be aid to help these dying. If we were, being ignorant on something, where should we start? We could start somewhere.
Right.
Where should we start? Like, some people are good with oil, some people are good with fermentation, some people are good with this and that. Should we just pick something and get good at it?
Well, I think really what you're asking is where do I find my information? I'm not talking about me personally, but you and whoever wants to study. First of all, where do you go for your information? Secondly, what can I pick and choose? I'm going to answer it broadly, and that is start with finding scripture that applies principle. There's lots of scripture about how to take care of our bodies. You can start in Genesis and go to Revelation. That's why we call our ministry Heavenly Leaves. The leaves are for the healing of the nations, right? And he gave us all the plants that have leaves to be our nutrition. Then I would recommend counsels on diet and foods and counsels on health, ministry of healing. Read all of those prayerfully and carefully, not just skim through them. And then I would say, don't wait until you're done with all of that, but as you read, Ask the Lord to show you somebody today. You can encourage them to drink more water. You can encourage them to, let's go for a walk. You can call your friend and say, I haven't heard from you for a while. What's going on? And after your chat, can I pray with you before we leave this conversation? All of that is medical ministry. You don't have to have a degree. You don't have to read 6 books and digest them and everything before you can do something. If you go into a home, or you know of somebody that needs you to come into their home, for example, a mother that's harried with 3 toddlers running around, wash up her dirty dishes that she hasn't been able to get to today. That's medical missionary work. It doesn't have to be complicated. Yes, you can learn about essential oils. Yes, you can learn about hydrotherapy. You can learn about a lot of things, and all of it's good. But do what you know. Don't wait until you think you know more. We've had an opportunity to visit the Beijing sanitarium, and they asked me to do hydrotherapy treatments for a week, teach them how to do. And somehow, I could tell you details, but I'm just trying to shorten it up. Somehow the Lord sent out, through the matron of Beijing Sanitarium, sent out invitations to 100 small sanitariums on the east side of China. And we had 80 people in attendance, and there was only like 5 health guests at the sanitarium and some staff. So about 75 people came from those little sanitariums. I have no idea where that influence went. But at the Beijing sanitarium, all they knew to do was give their guests good nutrition. They knew juicing, and give them a warm foot bath before they went to sleep. That's all they knew how to do. And they had a sanitarium. They had a garden, and they had a whole facility there. I had to teach them how to do charcoal poultices, and I taught how to do hot and cold fomentations, and probably a variety of other things because we were there for a week. But I'm just saying they were doing a good job with what little bit they knew, and they were seeing results.
That we learned over there in China was the number one most operation that they did in the hospital was to take out gallbladders. And if you see everything was just soaked in oil, and it just.
We already talked about that.
Huh?
Go ahead. I said we already talked about that, but go ahead.
But I think the rule about what you eat is if it tastes good, spit it out.
Yeah. Well, that brings up another point. I mean, if you start making changes on your plate, other people near you are going to see that, and they're going to say, I want to know how you're able to do what you're doing. I can't imagine me eating like you eat, that sort of thing. We had a visitor here today that was a Mormon, and she's looking for ways to become a vegetarian. And she was so excited with everything she tried at the table today. So you never know. You know, she has family that's members here, but it's still, you never know what she saw or what she ate that's going to make an influence on her to go back and influence her family in another state, for example. So I just want to encourage you to do what you know to do. We can make arrangements if you don't have anybody here that can teach cooking classes. We can do that too. You know, there's a number of things that can be done, and it's not hard. You just have to do it. You just have to make time. Is that too much information, or give you a place to start? Good. Okay. And I still, I'll tell you what, one little thing. When I went to college, I wasn't an Adventist. I didn't know any of this. My mother knew and my parents knew we should eat out of the garden as much as possible. We did a lot of canning. We do those kind of things. But I worked in a dry cleaner's call office the summer between my freshman and sophomore years in college. And the drivers from the laundry would bring clothes in, and then I would prepare them to go into town to be cleaned. So anyway, the point is the drivers, there were 2 drivers, and didn't come together. That's my point. They would spend time talking to me, which they probably weren't supposed to do, and answering questions. And I learned a lot. And one of those men took me to the camp meeting. What's a camp meeting? He took me to the book and Bible tent, and he said, I want to buy some books for you and start a library. And he bought me Ministry of Healing and Great Controversy and maybe Counsels on Diet and Foods. And that was where I began. Somebody gave me the gift of those books. And so that's another way that you can help. And somehow I'm trying to understand. I understand in the broad sense that the health message is tied into the third angels and the three angels' messages. But how does it specifically relate to the third angel's message? That's what I'm trying to study. When I have a few minutes, I'll go read it. So it's a message that is for this time, and we have more information now than we've ever had. In the broad sense, anywhere you look, you can find information about health. It may not always be good, but it's there, and we have to learn to filter it. And so just keep reading, keep studying, keep asking the Lord what he wants you to learn. And remember that your health is in your hands. Nobody else can bend your elbow. Nobody else can push you out the door. Nobody else can make you drink water. Any other questions? Heavy metals. Cilantro will even take out radiation. What else comes to mind? Second. He's giving me sign language. Well, don't eat so much of it at one time. That's true of any herb, we tend to overuse, and then all we can taste is the herb. But you want the herb to blend, no matter what it is. It's pesto, it's cilantro, it's Italian seasoning. You want it to balance with the food you're fixing it with, so that you don't just taste that heavy taste. But yeah, the diatomaceous earth, is that what you're thinking of? The white powder in the canister on the counter at home. What? Diatomaceous earth will take out heavy metals, and it doesn't have any flavor. It'll also help with parasites. There's a product called EDTA, that takes out heavy metals, but I'm not prepared to tell you the details on that. I know it takes out heavy metals, but to tell you the dosage and all that, I don't know. I'd have to study it.
Joyce, one other issue here. We spend a lot of time on diet.
Mm-hmm.
And we think that, if we eat the right combination of foods and drink water and all this, we'll be really healthy. But isn't the main focus of the health message is actually the combination of the seven,
eight laws of health.
It's putting them all together that lets the body overcome all of the things that tend to break it down.
That's a good point. So we commonly call it 8 laws of health. Sometimes people add a couple like praise and prayer and thankfulness, but so there's nutrition, exercise, water, fresh air and sunshine, temperance or balance. I like to say balance, and rest, exercise, and trust in God. And yes, it's a combination of all of those things. However, what we eat affects every cell and every bone and every brain particle in our body, the nervous system, every part of us. We can't do the other things if we don't have good nutrition and good health. I also want to say that we tend to, especially as Adventists and people that are, and I'm not saying this to be critical, but just what I've noticed over the years, a lot of times people think, oh, we have to do this and we have to do that, and we have to be really rigid about all of this, and we can't deviate from it. And I'm not saying to be careless, I'm just saying be balanced. Because the 8 laws of health are not our salvation. Jesus is our salvation. We can eat all the right things and live as healthfully as we know how. We don't have any control over what's going over in the air. We don't have any control of the nuclear plant that went down and came across into Washington 15 or 20 years ago. We don't have any control over those things. We have to control or choose what we can, do the best with what we know, and ask the Lord to bless the rest, because we're trusting in Him as our healer. It's not a sin to get sick, it's a sin to, what did I start to say? I think that's part of it. But what I want to get to is sometimes we get sick and we don't know what to do, or even if we try something, it's too little, too late kind of thing. And so then we blame God because we didn't get well. We died instead. Well, I like what my friend Maimon Wilson said, if you're not following God's way, whose way are you following? And so God never promised that we wouldn't die, just promised that He wants us to be in good health. And the time to start is today. You can't undo what you didn't know about yesterday or 20 years ago or 60 years, 50, whatever, or when you were children. But you can start today to make better choices and have better health. You can overcome some you can overcome things that have been caused by lifestyle issues. And I think that addresses what you're saying. So we have to take charge, be in charge, and ask God to be in charge. Does that make sense? So, be balanced. I appreciate, one more question over here behind you.
So I know in Seventh-day Adventists, we don't drink, most of us don't drink coffee, anything caffeinated, but can you talk about cocoa powder? That also has caffeine and things of that nature.
Can I talk about cocoa powder? Well, some people say that it's a sin to have chocolate. And if you look at chocolate from the perspective of health, the Food and Drug Administration allows a certain thousands of particles of insect parts in the cocoa, in the chocolate. If you were ever to try to eat what's called baker's chocolate, it doesn't have any sugar or fat in it. It's so bitter you can't hardly stand it. So if you just buy a candy bar that's chocolate, it's got lots of sugar and fat in it. So it's probably not the best choice. And hot chocolate is in the same category. And there is some caffeine in chocolate, I think, if I remember right. And there's other chemicals too. So it's probably not the best choice. I can't find anywhere in Spirit of Prophecy where it says eating chocolate is a sin. So I've had people tell me that. I personally
say eating chocolate is a sin, but chocolate does have caffeine. So if we're staying away from anything that has caffeine, we should also consider that.
I would agree. And then, so you can use carob in your recipes instead of chocolate powder. Carob powder is a similar finished product. Thank you for that question. Chocolate is something I never enjoyed when I was growing up. I have a favorite memory. While I'm waiting for the microphone there, the house we lived in when I was growing up had a big picture window off the dining room that looked out over the ocean. And my younger sister, who's 4.5 years younger than I am, was terrified when the lightning storms would come. So my mother, it didn't happen very often, but it would wake her up at night, all that thunder and lightning. So my mother would wake all of us up and fix us some hot chocolate, and we'd sit and drink hot chocolate and watch the lightning and thunderstorms. And so it's not something that I grew up with that we had all the time. So I never enjoyed it. But chocolate, I can leave it alone. Like today, I have to work on that. I don't eat much of it anyway. Do you have another question?
I have tried Baker's chocolate, and you're very correct. It's horrible. So I was just going to ask if a person is tired and they can't rest for whatever reason. Is there anything you would recommend in the place of coffee or tea or something that would?
So you're asking what can you use as a stimulant instead of caffeine?
Yeah. What would function as a stimulant that wouldn't involve caffeine or something that would be harmful to the body?
Well, there's probably several things that would work, but is it for the best interest of your health? Things like kava is an herb, but it's caffeine. You don't want to use caffeine. I would have to explore your health history. Why do you need a stimulant? Get outside in the fresh air and sunshine and chop some wood, or plant a garden, or wash the windows, or do something. That exercise is stimulating. Don't climb roofs and fall off of them. Our Sabbath school teacher told us he did that. It's like, did you have another question? There's things that you can take to help you sleep, but I don't think that's your problem. You told me earlier.
I do have a question, but I'll make a statement first. Some time ago, I heard Dr. Neil Nedley advise that this particular guy was a truck driver, and he couldn't hardly do his long haul trucking without caffeine, but became convinced that maybe he shouldn't use caffeine. So Dr. Nedley advised watermelon.
Oh, that's interesting.
Fresh watermelon. There's something in it, and I can't remember what it was called, but this truck driver apparently started using watermelon and did okay.
Well, what comes to my mind is watermelon is a diuretic. He would have to stop a little more often. There may be, I haven't heard that, so there may be something in the watermelon.
Dr. Neil Nedley said that there is a compound or something in watermelon that helps you be more alert. But my question is, I kind of missed it, or maybe I wasn't paying close enough attention when you talked about acid reflux and what a person should do for acid reflux issues.
The statement I made is that acid reflux, I think, this is my opinion, okay, I think is often not enough acid in the stomach. And so you get that burning sensation. The other problem is if you overfill your stomach and it comes back up in your esophagus, that burns because you've got your stomach acid mixed with it. But usually the doctors may do the test where they put you to sedate you and then put a tube down and look into the esophagus. And if there's a lot of inflammation in there, then there has been gastric reflux. The stomach acids are coming up into the esophagus. In my opinion, that I'm not saying that they're wrong, but past the age of 45, you don't produce enough acid. And so why would excess acid be coming up into the stomach? I'm just trying to reason through that. So
my son basically indicated that when you don't have sufficient acid in the stomach, that it doesn't close the sphincter, and so it allows more reflux to occur.
Right, that's true also. And so what the medical system wants to do is give you the Nexium or one of those, I'm not trying to say medication names because I don't know all of them, but one of those kind of pills that suppresses the production of the stomach acid, which just complicates the problem in my mind. If you're not producing enough and they make you not have enough, then
Well, certainly without the acid, it interferes with the digestive process.
absolutely. It slows it down and it is incomplete. Yeah. So the remedy that I gave was aloe vera gel and betaine hydrochlorate. It's a digestive enzyme made from beets. And that will heal the burning in your stomach. It will heal the leaky gut.
So,
Go
so
ahead.
there's different aloe vera gels.
I like the lily of the desert or desert lily brand. Seems to be a good quality. Angie, could you use the microphone, please?
I just didn't catch the other part that you were mentioning there with the gastric reflux.
Betaine hydrochlorate. Betaine HCl. And you can either contact me or you can find it in health food stores.
Okay.
Roger? I don't cook with chocolate at all. But I want to also emphasize, as we're helping and encouraging one another, that we do the best we can. And I do the best I can in my sphere. You do the best you can in your sphere, and don't judge each other. Don't criticize, because we're here to encourage each other along the way. Just by way of explanation, we enjoy tofu. Somebody had a question about yogurt. I want to come back to that too. So we enjoy tofu at our house, and we enjoy cashew gravy and cashew this and that and the other thing. But about 10 years ago, Roger was having some symptoms and we couldn't figure out what the problem was. So we did some testing and we found out that he was allergic to all of the nuts and beans and seeds. Now, what am I supposed to cook for this man? What am I supposed to prepare for him? And so we've had to modify what we eat, and we've incorporated some things that we had left alone for a long time. And I don't know if people are criticizing us or not. I try to be a good example, but I'm not perfect. So, but there's a reason for it. It's not, we still have to come back and reason from cause to effect. He's much better now, and he's only 2 or 3 things that we have to be careful with. He can only have beans every 4 days, for example. And this week we've had beans every day, and he's been really tired. So there was a question about yogurt. The yogurt that's made from dairy products, I don't recommend, because I think we should leave the milk products alone. There's too much disease in the animals in general. However, you can take the non-dairy milk and open, you can do one of 2 things. You can buy the non-dairy yogurt and put a spoonful of that in the non-dairy milk and let it sit, and it will develop into a yogurt. Or you can take a probiotic capsule and open that and make the yogurt out of that. I was going to say something else and it left before I got to say it. Did you have your hand up, Roger? You're going to say something else. The thing we have to be careful with yogurt in general is the sugar that's put in it. There's flavorings and and sugars and different things that are added into it that are not good for us. So be a label reader. Don't use things that have OSE of any kind in it. And chemicals, preservatives, all of those things accumulate because we can't process them. Okay, Tiffany? I just use water and a scrub brush, but I don't have a problem with any of that. You're not ingesting it, you're just washing it and you're going to rinse it off. You just want to, if there's chemicals or pesticides, you want to scrub those off or peel them. Yeah. I don't rinse my berries because I pick them in my yard. I know what you're saying, but berries, especially your raspberries and blackberries, and they kind of fall apart if you rinse them. Yeah. And my blueberries I get from a place that doesn't spray or use any pesticides. So maybe that's, do your research before you go and pick and choose fields that don't use those sprays if you can. The heaviest pesticides are the ones that are coming up right now from Mexico and Southern California, the strawberries especially. But you can buy, I haven't seen it recently, but at some point I bought a bag of organic strawberries. That means they don't have pesticide. They haven't been grown with pesticide. So in the freezer, like at Grocery Outlet or some of those stores. So just watch and read your labels. Know where they come from. Be as careful as you can and ask the Lord to bless what you can't control. Just don't deliberately take poison and then say, Lord, bless this. That's been done, to prove a point, like with charcoal. It's like, go ahead. Is there any other questions? Everybody looks like they need a nap or a walk. So we're going to close. It's 3:45. Thank you for your attention and your really good questions. They've all been good. And I'm not going to apologize that I don't know everything. You guys need to do some studying. All right, let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this afternoon hours, and thank you for the time that we've been able to explore how we can apply the principles in our own lives. We ask that you would bless the information that's been shared from both ways, and we ask that you would help us to be willing to make better choices and to incorporate your will into that we can submit to your will. We ask these things in Jesus' name, amen.